Canine Detection Collaborative, a detection dog training trio with Stacy Barnett.
Hi.
Robin Grubel.
Hey there.
And Crystal Wing.
What's up?
With humor and a big dose of theory, our trio talks practical training advice and features interviews with top trainers and scientists. It's Canine Detection Collaborative.
Welcome back to Canine Detection Collaborative. This is Crystal Wing, and I'm here with Stacy Barnett.
Hey, how's it going?
And Robin Grubel.
Hello, everybody.
We are doing some reflecting. We had a wonderful conversation with Lauryn DeGreeff, and we're noticing there's a lot of science talk, and some of it, can get a little high and a little over our heads, but there were a lot of things that I absolutely was so excited to talk about. And so here we are this evening and talking about these things. I would like to go ahead and bring up our first topic if you ladies are ready for it.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Awesome. So I am all about creative problem solving. I'm a high school art teacher, and I'm always saying that imagination's your best tool. And when she said they were using a DustBuster for a scent transfer vacuum, do you know how excited I was?
That was amazing. I had him my picture just like a little, like a dirt devil or whatever. What were those, like
DustBuster?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That is incredible.
Yeah. Like a little dirt devil.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I believe some training partner people I know, like 15 years ago, had one of those. And I actually got to see them use it. They were using it for trailing practice to suck up the odor off of a person and then transfer it to different gauze pads. And then they were running the trailing dogs off of that. It was fascinating.
That's like science fiction. It's just crazy. I'm picturing it in my head, like somebody standing there and somebody going, pulling their odor off, right? It's just, I don't know. That kind of blows my mind a little bit.
So now I'm thinking for trailing folks, like, couldn't you just go, if the vehicle's the last thing known, and couldn't you just go to their seat and just use the little DustBuster and have your little, cotton polyester blend on the edge and just kind of sucking up odor onto it?
You could if you were the only person who ever drove that car.
I mean, if it's the person's last car.
And sat in that seat.
Mind blown.
In my van, it would work because nobody else drives my car. Right?
True.
Because I'm just thinking where we sit's probably stinky.
I'm also kind of thinking of my van as like a big odor soak, right? My van is this big odor soak.
Right.
I'm in there. All the windows are up. It's me and it's 5 dogs. So there is no way that front seat just smells like me.
True.
Right.
I'm just getting hopeful here. Come on now.
Yeah. So hopefully, I'll never refer to my van as an odor soak again, but hey.
But that also brought up something else that I was fascinated by. And she talked about basically that cotton has these rough edges and polyester has the smooth edges, and that using the combination of the two was like the perfect collector. And that also it made me just realize the things we already have are just useful, and we can use what we already know and what we already have. So that's also something I learned from her.
Well, and it's interesting because I have students ask me quite a few times, well, what should I be using, especially in the cadaver realm, the cadaver dog realm, because odor is so hard to get. And my usual answer is anything and everything that will soak up whatever you're trying to soak up. I don't care if it's towels. I don't care if it's socks. I don't care if it's a t-shirt or, some random thing that you got at the Goodwill store. If it will soak up and retain any sort of odor, that's great. I even have things like sandals, random clothing items that I store in my freezer with all of my source, because then I also put those out as part of the training scenarios.
Creepy.
So, yeah, kind of creepy, but
but it also makes sense.
It also makes sense because you never know when there's going to be some blood drops on a flip-flop, right? And you actually find the flip-flop.
Right.
And so the dogs learn the odor can be on or in anything.
Right.
And then it's really interesting when you take that and reverse it and you set up what we call handler hell and do things like put Odor inside of a McDonald's bag.
Okay.
And have your handlers freak out because their dog is now alerting on a McDonald's bag. Because in their mind, all that can live in a McDonald's bag is, French fries and a Big Mac. So, it's really that whole trust your dog thing.
I will never look at a McDonald's bag the same way again.
You're welcome.
I just won't. I'm just, when I see people walking across the street with one, my mind is just going to go in 12 different ways that I don't want it to go.
Well, here's another one that might flip you out a little.
Oh, so here we go.
I know we're talking about humane, so let's dig in.
Oh boy.
So Lauren talked about body farms, and I was listening and I've heard of these. And I know, Robin, you've had some experience with this. Can you kind of explain a body farm?
So probably the most famous body farm is the one at the University of Tennessee that Dr. Bill Bass started. And it is a forensic anthropological research center where they actually go through people who have donated their body. They actually write out research on how they're going to watch those bodies decompose. And they have forensic entomologists come in. They wrap people up in carpets. They put them in trunks. They submerge them in ponds if they have that available. They do all of these different things so that when we start doing homicide cases, it helps determine how the body decomposes so they can figure out time of death.
That's fascinating. And let me tell you, the people that donate their bodies for that, wow,
yeah, it's crucial evidence, a crucial research. It's actually fairly hard to do because of the requirements. They actually have to have it double fenced. They've got to have, it's under lock and key, all of that sort of thing. And then the interesting thing is, so if you think about Tennessee versus New Jersey versus, Missouri versus Iowa versus Minnesota versus Colorado.
Yeah. You have a totally different climate.
Totally different bugs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And so there's probably, as of right now, I think 5 or 6 different body farms throughout the United States. But I think there's one in Colorado, there's one at Southern Illinois, there's one at Western Carolina, there's University of Tennessee. I think there's one in Florida. They've got things, going like that. But in order for research and even training, where do forensic anthropologists and those go to get training in order how to excavate a body appropriately? So that's what body farms are. And depending on the body farm, you may or may not be able to get access with the cadaver dogs. Right. So, and then even when you do get access, there's very specific training programs. We are, incredibly respectful of the remains. Right. And even the dogs are typically worked on leash. So they're not allowed to disturb, because that's not only is that somebody's, loved one, right? But then they're also in the middle of a research project. Exactly. So you don't want to really mess with anything. Exactly. So that's what body farms are. Wow. Yeah.
How important do you think it is for the cadaver dogs to be able to experience a body farm? Is that something they would need for fluency, or do you feel like it's just a bonus?
They don't actually need to experience a body farm. What they need to experience is a full body exposure. And so that gets into the type of training source or specimens that are available to cadaver dog handlers, which is actually a incredible need, not only in the United States, but across the world. Wow. Because it's hard. Most search and rescue dog handlers are volunteers. They're not with the department. So there are some not so ethical people out there, or people who I guess are forgetful and accidentally leave their source places or obtain. Yeah. Most of that's an accident because it's so hard to actually get that you're horrified if that actually happens. Or to be perfectly honest, I live in an area where I have to be incredibly careful about what specimens I put out because I have things like coyotes, raccoons, and possums that like to eat my odor.
Oh,
right. So I spend a lot of money on suet cages and other things to keep things where they're supposed to be. But not a lot of search and rescue handlers, like 97% of them in the United States, are not associated with the department, a fire department, law enforcement. So we're professional volunteers that have to actually purchase our specimens from a legitimate source. Right. And you have to, there's training, there's hazmat requirements, there's all sorts of stuff, plus how you store it. So I have, if you come to my house, I have them in freezer that's biohazard labeled, that's double locked in a locked building with checkout sheets and scales and all sorts of things. That's how it goes in and goes out and all sorts of stuff. So it's almost as restrictive as having narcotic explosives.
Wow.
Tends to be right now more expensive to actually acquire than narcotics or explosives. But anyway.
Wow. Well, with nose work, we sometimes do have hides that like drive away and stuff when we're training. We try to avoid that. But
luckily, dead people don't drive away.
Yeah.
Here's something I was confused on. So you're talking about how hard it is to get a hold of. And I know with narcotics and bombs, you can get pseudos of those things. And like, was there like a precision explosion or something? What is that?
So yes, there's this great company called Precision Explosives that you can actually buy a version of odor soaks using Gextent technology. And I hope I got that right. We'll include links to both companies in the show notes that allow you to have access to actual narcotics and explosives odors without actually having to possess live odor, which for those of us who don't have magazines for explosives and narcotics is actually super fantastic.
Oh, wait, you don't just have those in your back pocket?
Might depend on who you train with.
Oh, good point. It's all about who you know.
It is all about who you know. And so the nice thing is it actually allows you to work on those odors. But, there's this whole concept out there of pseudo odor, and the FBI actually did a study. I believe that was back in 2014, 2015. And they came out hands down, no pseudo for cadaver dogs, period. End of story.
Wow.
Well, that makes sense because Lauren said that the dogs, they don't even know what the dogs are actually hitting on for the different cadaver. And then, and that was also something that got me. When do we all start smelling the same? I'm so curious. I know that's such a silly thing, but I really hope that she's able to continue that research.
Yeah, that was really crazy.
Because even we were talking, my friend and I, Nancy, we were talking about, does it matter if the person does drugs? Does that make their odor smell different, when they're dead? And then if it does, well, what kind of drugs? And, on what extent and all these things. So I don't know.
Anecdotally, I will say yes. The dogs tell us through body language and the fact that we actually have to expose them to people who have done extensive narcotics use. Sometimes the dogs won't hit on them.
Wow.
And so, so we actually have to expose the dogs we try and make sure that's part of our litany of odors. I have actually had to start thinking of cadaver odor in like space-time continuum, sort of 4 dimensions, to grasp all of the different continuity of odors and that you have to expose your dogs to. I mean, their vocabulary has to be huge.
That just blows my mind. That really just completely blows my mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What tickled my brain a little bit. so let's say that this person was a meth addict and then they die. And then would a narcotics dog be able to hit on that as a meth source?
Wow.
I'm just curious.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
And then, so thinking about cocktails and how we train. Okay, never mind. I won't. There's a rabbit hole there. I'm about to go down. I'll stop.
Yeah. That's.
I'll stop.
Yeah, cocktails. Just in general with cocktails and odor, like as in putting all of your odors together to make a cocktail.
Yeah.
Just no.
Well,
I have trained dogs better after having a few cocktails someday. That's a whole new story.
We're going to have to leave the cocktail one for a different episode, I believe.
Yes.
Because I was starting to feel it and I thought, no, that's a different rabbit hole for another day.
That is a rabbit hole. That is a real rabbit hole.
Okay, you can't have a pseudo human remains, but you can have an odor soak of human remains. So we talked about like the gauze. Are there people out there like selling pseudo things then, or how does that work?
There are.
Oh.
And I would highly encourage anyone who thinks about using a pseudo odor of any nature, let alone cadaver, out on the Canine Census website under webinars. There is an excellent episode that Michele Maughan did for us about how training aids should actually be validated.
I love Michele Maughan. I got to check that out.
Me too. Yes. It was a fascinating episode. It's only about an hour. She has excellent graphics and did a very, very good job of explaining how training aids it doesn't matter whether they're explosives, narcotics, human remains, bed bugs, whatever, should actually be validated. And the considerations you should have if you're using your operational level dog to validate somebody else's training aids. And I will go point blank, flat out, hard pass on any cadaver dog people using pseudo training aids of any nature. Bad idea. Don't do it.
Wow.
I mean, we have two scientists saying it, so I guess that I'll say you're the third that backs it. So I'm listening.
Yes.
That webinar on the canine census, how much is that?
It's free.
Free?
That's my
We like
favorite
free.
price.
I know, isn't it?
That is my favorite price.
Hey, let's make sure we put that in the show notes too. People have access and they can just quickly get there. So check out the show notes. We'll put it there. That'll be a good place.
Absolutely.
Lots of things in the show notes this week.
Yeah, that podcast, man. When I got done, I thought my head was going to explode. I mean, I have a scientific degree, right? And I walked into the podcast thinking like, hey, I have some idea about some science here. And I walked out going, whoa, I don't. Because everything is relative.
I'll tell you, talking about science, knowing your science background, and then Michele Maughan, you just mentioned, and then when Lauren mentioned that she had an entirely, women outfitted lab of 5 different women working, I just, that also was inspiring to me, and here we are, we were talking to her in March, which was Women's History Month. And so all of that just tied in so nicely. It kind of gave me goosebumps a little. I was really, really impressed by that.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool.
Well, and it was interesting for me and I always find this fascinating because it goes back to my corporate world. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah.
And to listen to her talk about how her career went from, I was in, I was going to do this. And then I did this lab. And because I knew this person, then I jumped to the FBI. And because I knew this person, I jumped to, the Naval Research Lab or wherever she went next. And then, because I wanted to do some of this, I knew this people and, jumped back to Florida International University. And I was like, people stressed to me in college how important networking was.
Yeah.
But it's always amazing to me as to how much that's constantly reiterated.
Yeah. Yep. 1,000%. we could all just kind of like look back at our lives and just say, would we be where we are doing what we're doing without that networking? And I think the answer is a hard no.
Correct.
You can have all the talent in the world, but it's the ability to network, it's the ability to cooperate, right? And really kind of open yourself up a little bit. That really makes all the difference.
And as an introvert, oh, dude, that's hard.
That's hard. That's hard.
It's so hard. I don't go out and actively start talking to people.
Yeah, but you know what? Sometimes things just like happen. I mean, look at the three of us. I mean, like that was just crazy, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we just kind of ended up at Robin's farm as like this homing beacon or something. I don't know what it was. Like, whoop, 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 and then we ended up.
It was the donkeys. It was the donkeys.
It's the ears. It's like the radar ears. They just kind of suck you in.
It is.
Yeah, it's definitely the donkeys.
No, just me reaching out to Robin on that message that day of, hey, I need to get into a class. And
I know.
I'm at Robin's, and then here Stacy is messaging Robin, hey, I want to come up. I'm heading to Summit. And I'm like, Stacy Barnett's coming here.
I'm like, why is she coming to my house?
Oh my gosh. It's just so cool. It's just
the three of us chuckleheads all meeting together. And
yeah. Yeah. I mean, do we want to kind of maybe share kind of like our own networking and just kind of say like how it worked for us?
I'll share a fast one.
Okay.
I don't know if this counts of what you're asking. College, I went in as a criminal justice major because I wanted to do juvenile delinquents. I wanted to help them. And I got my first C of my life. And I have to work really, really hard for grades, like really hard. I went to Truman State University. They're kind of known for being like the Harvard of the Midwest, whatever. So it's like the poor man's school, but it's a really good education. Anyway, got my first C, really sad. And the professor pulled me aside and said that you want to make all these differences and it's going to break you. And of course, my college spirit is like, no, not going to break me. I'm going to change the world. And then it kind of sunk in. And a couple of days later, I was in an art class because it's a liberal arts college. And I thought, let's take an art class. I took one in high school. Let's try this. And we had a visiting artist, Pitt Brandt. And she asked that Thursday in class and said, how many of you are art majors? And I'm still just, going to town on my charcoal drawing. And I look up because the class got kind of quiet and they're looking at me like, why didn't you raise your hand?
Wow.
And so she pulled me aside and we talked. And Tuesday I was no longer criminal justice major. And Thursday I was an art major. Wow. She's like, this is what you need to do. So just that this visiting artist was there and that conversation happened, I would have never even considered art as a major. And then high school came about because, juvenile delinquents and art class. I don't know. It all seems to work out somehow. It all made connections.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
No, I do have wonderful students, so they're not all juvenile delinquents, but I do get to help. I get to help youth in a different way.
Yeah, because sometimes there's a little bit of luck, right?
Oh yeah.
And like, I think we underestimate that part of it, but I think part of it is, and this is kind of my takeaway with networking is when a door opens, you have to recognize it and then you have to go through it.
You have to also be prepared.
I don't know if you have to be prepared. Can you also just not be afraid? I think that's been my biggest lesson this year is I was not prepared for all of the things you guys have thrown me into at all. Not prepared.
Kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming, but I did it, right? So I wasn't afraid. I just was like, okay, let's go.
Yep.
Well, and I guess my definition of prepared is different because you definitely agree, don't be afraid. But there is, one of my favorite quotes is opportunity is missed by most because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. Right. Yes. And so there is that part of, in my mind, being prepared of you've done the work.
Yeah.
So that when somebody knocks on your door and says, hey, you want to go do this thing? You're kind of like, yeah, but wow, why me? Oh, I've got all this that's going on behind me that I can do it.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I hear that.
Yeah.
Right. I think about it as I have a farm. I work with, my husband has a job and owns a company where experience is valued. They have an apprenticeship program and that sort of thing. So it's how long have you spent time in the seat? And that matters, especially in an atmosphere like dog training.
Right.
It is, okay, those 1,000 dog eyes matter.
Yep.
How many dogs have you trained and brought up and done all of this other sort of stuff? Is it 2 or 15?
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. It really, really does. And, and again, from a networking, right, I just kind of keep going to there is a little bit of a risk and you have to be ready to take it. Right?
Yes.
So, you're right. It's like, these opportunities, like really, they're cloaked in your overalls, right? Right. Opportunities are work, but they're also risk because, sometimes you may have to stop doing something else, or sometimes it's taking away time from, maybe your family, or taking away time from somewhere, whatever it is, you have to kind of see the opportunity as an opportunity versus just going, oh, wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we're all just kind of like going, whoa, yeah, that's
well, and going back to Lauren and thinking about how she has had to look at, all these different opportunities. Because, one of the questions we asked her, well, if money wasn't an option, what would you be doing? And her response was human remains research.
Right.
And finishing, I think there was one of the other odors, I think the HME odor stuff that she wanted to finish.
Yep.
I sure hope she gets to. I hope that someone out there can support her in that.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And so, I think that that's important things for, her goal has been to do all of this really cool research, and it's taken her a couple of different avenues to get there.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think when you say the sky is the limit, what would you do? And my best friend, Nancy, had a thing that she shared with me that's really stuck with me. And it goes, the bad news is you're falling through the air, nothing to hang on to, no parachute. The good news is there's no ground.
Wow.
And that was one of those that I think has really inspired me this last year, is just to imagine that there is no ground, just go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're coming up on 7 years that I'm teaching for Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. And that opportunity, that Denise Fenzi gave me, that was probably one of the most life-changing opportunities I can think of. I was teaching part-time and still working full-time at my corporate job. But that job was sucking the life out of me. It really was. But I just basically worked like kind of 1.5 jobs for a couple of years. And then I took the leap to go full-time and teaching. I think I've been doing that for like 5 years full-time. And it was a little scary, but sometimes, when you get a little bit of an opportunity and you start to build on it, because you have to take initiative, right? You have to take that opportunity, but then you have to build on it and keep building and keep building and keep building. And that takes, it takes a lot of initiative. And everybody was like, oh, wow, that must have been so scary. But I started thinking, I'm like, well, it's even scarier not to take the opportunity and not to do it. That's even scarier.
Yeah. I was sort of pushed off a cliff.
Yeah.
And so I totally get that. And the thing and maybe we'll have to do an episode on this, because even I've worked with faculty for a long time, and yes, they get a salary, but especially working for some of the tier 1 research universities, they have to be so driven that it's basically like their lab, like Lauren's lab, is her own small business.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's writing grants. She's out getting, trying to find donors. She's out doing all of this other stuff and recruiting graduate students. And so, and I think, people are like, oh, it must be so great working for yourself. And I'm like, you know what? Some days I really just want one of those days where you show up to work and you can stare at your computer and people think you're working.
I think I had a lot of those days. I really do think I had a lot of those days. And I don't have any of those days anymore. It's
I don't need, well, because if you don't work, you don't get paid.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And there's always something to do. There's always, it's but at the same time, for me, it's just so fulfilling. Although I do say it would be really nice to just like have an evening once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I need to do that. When you're self-employed, you make your own hours, but they just happen to be all of them.
Right. And I'm like, well, I have to schedule in date night with the husband because otherwise it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And then the cows get out.
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But we also live in a society that really celebrates busy right now. And so that's also something that I think weighs against us.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at my job. I mean, I've got 120 plus kids. I mean, there's no sitting down and then home, and then it's lesson planning and grading. And I mean, I feel like it's just in all aspects, whether it's, your own business owner or, you're working for, wherever. It feels so heavy right now. It's just busy, busy, busy. And I think that's why I thrive so much on what I have with my dogs, because that is the time that I can escape. Time just stops. It's just a magical time to be away from all of the busy.
Yeah.
It's always amazing to me. Like I went out and was training with the puppies today. And by the time that I walked into the store with the puppies to the time that I got done and walked out of the store with the puppies, I never looked at my watch once. I just trained. And it was like an hour and a half later.
Yeah.
And I was...
How many times did you have to check your phone?
The only reason I checked my phone was to make sure I was recording appropriately.
Right. And that's probably because, because you have your puppy class, but otherwise, I guess we do record a lot of our stuff either way.
I do. And you know what? The other thing that's amazing is you have really much better recordings when you put your phone on airplane mode.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody can interrupt you then.
Yeah.
Yep. I always do that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you don't do that, it can just like stop your recording. That's
right. Exactly.
Because you know what? The dogs are never going to repeat what they just did, and it's going to stop right before they get really brilliant.
It is. It always does too.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how many times I messaged you guys? That was the best training ever. And Stacy's like, where's the video? I don't know.
I don't have one.
But let me tell you about this scent problem. It was so exciting.
I tell you I tell people, get a GoPro or something. Just you need to video everything because it never fails. You don't have your camera, right? You're not videoing. That is going to be the most incredible experience. You're just going to see your dogs are just going to give you like this description of odor that's just like poetic, right? And you don't have it on camera.
And you'll never be able to repeat it again. Agreed.
Exactly. It'll be in your brain of like, I wish I had video of that. It was incredible. It was poetic, right?
I'm just nervous to drop the money on a GoPro because I keep thinking about how many times I'm actually not facing the dog and how much I'm just going to be looking at the ground.
You get most of it.
Yeah.
You get most of it. You really do. Yeah. I was actually doing some demo videos here in my house today, and I decided instead of, because sometimes I'll hold the camera, but that you actually get disconnected with the dog when you hold your phone. It's like you can feel it. Like, they can like all of a sudden they're like, where are you? You're not there. You're looking at your phone. Like, pay attention to me. Right. So I wore my GoPro. So I'm really hoping that those videos came out because you have to get the right angle and everything. So
yeah. There's some skill just in the videography of it.
There really is. And Powder wore her new pink booties for the first time.
Oh,
I saw them on Facebook.
Yes.
They're very, very styling.
I haven't seen it yet.
They are. They worked really well. They worked really, really well. So I know we're completely off topic, but I was just like, woo, pink booties.
But what are the pink booties for?
Oh, attraction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
She goes Mach 5?
Yes.
Safety. I like it.
The legs go way faster than the body. It's like she's just basically like the leg, like she's trying to follow her nose and the legs are just defying laws of physics. So the booties are just there to give her a little traction. And it was I mean, she tries so hard. I've got some videos of her searching and the legs are just going 50 different directions. But it's not.
So I'm going to circle back because like you said, we kind of got off our little tangent here.
Squirrel.
If we go back to that comment of who you know, I think I referred to Robin as like the ultimate connector. It's like, what's the Kevin Bacon game?
7 Degrees of Separation.
I feel like that's Robin of the detection world.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and it's funny because I would do that. I have done that for pretty much my entire career. I'm a connector. And I'm okay not knowing everything, all the answers to the questions you ask me, but you know what? I bet you I can find somebody with the answers.
Yep.
And it's okay to not be that person. It's okay to not be the person who knows everything.
Yeah.
Because I just learned like today that, there's a specific way that you have to feed puppies when they're getting brand new milk. Otherwise they get constipated. You wouldn't know these things until you know these things.
No, you wouldn't.
That's a whole other conversation.
You wouldn't know. So, follow us for more helpful tips, right?
I know that was a life hack right there. Along with the baby goats and goat milk is the universal milk replacer. So that's another life hack as well.
So pink booties and constipated puppies. Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't have room in your vehicle for a goat, you just put it in a box and put it on your console.
Yes. Follow me for more life hacks because I have them.
So Robin, I want to hear some of your favorite connections you've made of people that you have connected in fun ways, because I know you have a few.
Oh my gosh. I can't think of any.
Well, there was a conservation one you told me about not too long ago.
Oh, yeah. I run into because the students, I have students who reach out to me who are like, oh, hey, I want to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay, great. And a lot of what ends up happening is those things go into a Rolodex I have in my brain. And like I had somebody reach out to me not too long ago, it was probably a year and a half, and say, hey, we're looking for anybody who would be interested in doing conservation work. Can you refer some handlers or would you be interested? Right. So there was an opportunity for somebody knocking on my door. Hey, right. Do you want to do this? And my life is at such a point that I can't pick up and leave my farm for 3 months at any given point. And I was like, you know what? But I have this friend and student who this would be perfect for. Fast forward about 2 years later, she is now running their canine section.
Wow.
Right. And, all I did was make an introduction for her. She did all the work. So hence you have to be prepared.
Yep.
But, so she showed up and she took it and ran. And those are the connections that I am perfectly happy and excited to make. And sometimes actually it's also knowing when to say no.
Yep.
Which if anybody knows me, that's kind of like, you can stop laughing now. It's okay.
I'm going, when was the last time you said no?
I know. I was trying to remember that too.
I'm sort of going, okay, yeah, no. She definitely said yes. No, she definitely said yes there
you said
too.
No to me a couple days ago. You're like, nope, brain dead.
Oh, I did. Well, and I have mentally said no to certain things because, I'm getting ready to start a breeding program.
Right.
And so 8 weeks of my life, I can't leave my farm because I have puppies.
Yeah.
And Joe's not, my husband loves me, but he's not going to get up every 2 hours and check on puppies. So I can't even get my butt up out of bed every 4 hours to go check on goats at this point. And keep in mind, I have video cameras up in the barns to check on the donkey so I can do it from my bed.
Hey, that's a good hack.
And I do.
Yep.
Well, and I will probably have
a little donkey cam.
I have donkey cams and, lots of breeders have nanny cams.
Right.
So, part of my therapist, everybody should have a good therapist, in my opinion, is always talks about how much is on your plate. And I'm always trying to shove things off my plate so that my portions get bigger of the stuff I want on my plate. So that's another little life hack right there. But I'm going to circle us back to Lauryn, because one of the things that we were talking about that I think her research was really interesting, where we were talking about how odor moves.
Yeah.
And it's kind of along the lines of you have the cotton stuff and the polyester. So you need to, both of those work for odor soaks. You need to be doing on both things. And just how the research that she's doing is allowing us to understand how odor moves better so we can have better dogs.
Right.
I mean, and that's the whole, her and Michele Maughan, talk about two brilliant women scientists, right? Did this fabulous chapter in that book. Canine's the original biosensors, the one that Lauryn and Craig did the editing of.
Yep.
So I got mine in the mail the other day. I haven't started reading it, but that's on my to-do list because it's going to be horrible weather here. So
I ordered one and it arrived and it is heavy. It's really heavy. I just kind of flipped through it. It really, it's a lot of dense reading, but it's kind of like everything you wanted to know, right? I don't know.
I love having scientists excited about scent theory. And when she called our dog's canine biosensors, that I had to really think about, the idea of the bio and the sensor, and it made sense and then looking at that they can't replicate that, and then learning more about olfaction and just constantly striving to learn more. I kept feeling that from her, and it was very inspirational in that way. And I think too, it reminded me that they're not robots, the whole idea of bio, and you kind of think about biosensor as like this robotic thing, and it's not that at all. And so that's also something that I took away from it, this living thing that we have to interact with, and so powerful.
Yeah. What I took away from that was how, we really cannot replicate in real time an understanding of concentration of, odor concentration, right? So for me, kind of where I went with that was, we may think we know where the highest concentration of odor is, because I'm kind of thinking of this in terms of when my dog alerts, right? That my dog is telling me where the highest concentration of odor is. And there's a lot of times you talk to people who are like, well, the dog should be able to, I always hear that word should. And I just start to cringe, right? Because I always hear well, the dog should be able to catch the odor stronger over here or over there. And the answer is we don't ever know that, right? And it's the dogs are, if my dog is certain that the odor is strongest over here, over at this one area, who am I to, argue with that? Because we don't even have scientific tools available that could corroborate that in the moment.
I was speaking about one of those people that is pivotal in your learning. Early on in my cadaver dog career or search dog career, we ended up training with the kennel master at Offutt Air Force Base out of Nebraska. Her name was Deb Morris, and she looked at me because I was doing, well, my dog should alert over here. And she looked at me with straight face and said, so where'd you get those scent goggles?
Right.
And I looked at her and went, what? She's like, how do you know where odor is going to present? I want to know where you got the scent goggles because I want to buy a pair. And I was like,
right.
Oh. And that became one of those pivotal questions of, what? I could set up what I think is going to be the best problem in the world, and odor does something totally different.
Exactly. And I think, people, I see people a lot of, well, it's always Facebook, right? It's they're always like, well, I've never, I see people get kind of, very self-congratulatory about how they've never set, bad hides, or how they know where odor is going to go. And I'm just sitting here going, well, you just haven't set enough hides yet.
That was my thought as well.
Right. Because, it doesn't matter how much you know about scent theory, right? To us, it is still theory. We don't experience it.
Right. And I would say that on average, I'm lucky if every hide that I set out, every training, if I have all good hides. There's a couple of great hides, and then there's usually one or two crappy hides.
Or there's a hide that you thought was going to be straightforward, and you're like, whoa, look what that just did. And it's really cool. It's like a really cool hide, but like you didn't really anticipate it because, odor is so dynamic.
Correct.
Airflow is so dynamic that literally actually I set this really cool hide, right? And I was can't remember if it was Denmark or Sweden, right? And we were in this warehouse and they had skylights in this warehouse. And I set a hide that was in a sunbeam from the skylight. And we had this partly cloudy day. And it was so cool to watch the dog after dog work the hide because, the dog would work it and there'd be the sun out. And then all of a sudden the cloud cover would come and the odor would be completely different.
Fascinating.
It was like, this is cool, right? So we can predict a lot of this stuff, but the predictions are all based off of our own history of watching what the dog is already telling us. That's all it is.
Right.
We can have a little bit of the scientific part of it, right? We understand the gas laws. We understand, how airflow tends to move. Yeah, exactly. How pressure changes, airflow and how temperature changes airflow and everything. We can have these concepts and we can set a hide based off of these concepts, but we're constantly learning. And the educator is the dog who's describing to us what odor is doing in the moment. And as humans, we don't. And that was what was really fascinating is that we don't even have the technology that could say, yep, dog's right in the moment. Right.
We don't. And it was interesting to hear Lauren say the device that can beat a dog's nose probably will not be invented in her lifetime.
That's crazy.
Can I geek out on some art stuff that kind of relates for a second?
Yeah.
This is maybe a rabbit hole, but this is several years ago, but it was back with the Hubble Space Telescope. And the scientist had seen all of these eddies of these distant clouds and dusts and gas around this star. And they all thought, hey, this kind of reminds us of Van Gogh's Starry Night. And when they started studying his paintings, they discovered that there was this distinct pattern of turbulent fluid structures.
Yeah.
And when they looked at these different equations they'd been studying, they digitized the paintings and they started to measure the brightness between the pixels. And they actually started to see that during his psychotic episodes, that his work was remarkably similar to fluid turbulence. So it's one of the few times they've actually seen that a human has been capturing basically turbulence and being able to almost see it, but it's only in his psychotic states that he would actually be able to do this.
He actually had scent goggles.
I mean, yeah, in a way. And so there's a lot of research out there on it. It's really fascinating, but it's the first time that I'd ever seen or read about someone being able to portray kind of turbulent genius. And it was just it was one of the first times I learned about eddies.
Yeah.
And this is before I started doing nosework stuff, because then I started looking at his paintings. And when I started researching, what did he study? And to find out he wasn't studying any of this kind of stuff, and it wasn't even available to him that time, but he was able to perceive it and represent it in this just amazing way.
Wow.
Fascinating.
So related, kind of not related, but I think he's probably the closest to scent goggles we have.
Wow. I had to go to school and study baffles to understand eddies.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I am thinking that maybe we need to have Lauren come back.
Sounds great.
Are you just now thinking that? I've been thinking that from the moment she said goodbye.
Well, I was, okay, logistically. So, what I would actually really like is to have our listeners tell us questions that we should ask Lauren or Michele Maughan, because we're going to have Michele and Jenna on too. So,
oh yes.
Right. So if listeners have questions, make sure to put a comment on this episode or send us a note from the website. That would be fantastic.
Love it.
And we can make a post on Facebook and Instagram. That'd be an easy place to capture all of them because there's so many different podcast providers out there. I think we might miss a lot of the comments there.
Agreed.
So let's send you guys to Facebook and Instagram, and we will put a post up with this episode that you can ask all your questions.
Fantastic. And don't forget to go to our website to check out the freebies for this month.
They're fantastic.
Of course, they're beautiful. Just like our fans are fantastic.
Hey, they put the tastic in fan? I don't know. Yeah. On that note, thank you all for chatting this evening.
Thank you.
Canine Detection Collaborative! We appreciate the time you spend with us. If you liked this episode, not only should you follow us so you don't miss the next one, but please also rate and review us in your favorite podcast app. For info on collaborating with us, go to k9detectioncollaborative.com. That's K9 detectioncollaborative.com, where you can find our socials and pick up our latest monthly freebie. Join us again to talk training in the next episode.